But let's be clear about this. Our NHS staff, paramedics and call handlers are being failed too. They're the ones having to answer those heartbreaking calls and tell patients there won't be an ambulance coming anytime soon. They're the ones having to turn up to homes to distressing scenes and expected to explain your government's failures. So let's listen to the staff. They're telling us there are not enough ambulances. They're telling us there are not enough staff in the ambulance service or at A&E. They're telling us there are not enough beds in our hospitals. But it's not just patients having to wait hours for an ambulance. They're also having to wait hours outside a hospital in an ambulance. And things are so bad that the British Red Cross has been drafted in to deliver humanitarian assistance at Glasgow's flagship hospital. I note what the First Minister said about the role of the British Army. So will the First Minister listen to calls from ambulance staff and Unite the Union, who have called for a major incident to be declared, for pop-up wards at emergency departments and for the British Army to be drafted in? When will that happen?
First Minister.
As I said, I think in my first answer during this session, we are actively considering the detail of a request for targeted military assistance. It's important that we make that request in detail so that we know exactly what it is we are requesting from the military, and that is currently being prepared right now. On the issue of the call for a major incident, as I said to Douglas Ross, again, we're getting a bit lost in terminology here. The ambulance service is operating at its highest level of escalation. Because we don't call that major incident, it's called level 4 of their escalation, doesn't change the reality. And I would suggest that it is more important that we focus on the substance of what we are doing rather than perhaps have manufactured disagreements over the terminology. On the issue of pop-up wards, again, I think I said, be corrected if I'm wrong and didn't say this earlier on, Presiding Officer, but I referred earlier on to the consideration that again is underway right now around temporary admission wards. Why pop-up wards may not be appropriate, because we're going into a winter period and that may not be the best conditions for patients, so we're looking at an equivalent, which is temporary admission wards. So all of these things that we are being asked about today, we are already taking forward. This is an incredibly challenging situation, more so for those in the front line. And as I said earlier on, let me repeat my deep gratitude to those who are working on the front line of our National Health Service right now. But we will continue to take the steps and provide the solutions. We all know what the problem is. We may have a disagreement about what the cause of that problem is. My job, working with others, is to find the solutions, and that is what I am going to be focused on.
You don't understand the urgency. You want to wait a week for a statement and then actions to follow that. You want to consider options about what happens with the British Army. How many more Lillian Briggs need to happen in the next week before we take urgent action? How many more Gerard Browns need to happen in the next week before you take urgent action? Urgent action needs to happen today, tomorrow, the day after, not wait a week for this government to wake up. So the First Minister says she's taking action, but for months her and her Health Secretary have been in denial. Things are getting worse. People can't afford to wait, and these problems are years in the making. 600,000 people are waiting on waiting lists for treatment. We have record-breaking A&E waiting times, and people are tragically dying waiting for ambulances. The First Minister likes to remind us that the buck stops with her. It does. So how many more families will have to suffer? How much more stress will our workers have to endure? And how much more time does she expect people to give her and her Health Secretary to fix this mess?
First Minister.
The buck always stops with me, and whatever people agree or disagree with me on, I've never tried to shy away from that, and nor will I ever shy away from that. With the greatest respect to Anna Sarwar, government doesn't simply operate when Parliament is sitting. I'll be going back to my office after the session of First Minister's questions to, for example, finalise the detail of the request for military assistance so that we can submit that as quickly as possible. We will be going back to finalise the other additional actions we're taking, which of course are in addition to the actions that have already been taken. Government is literally a 24-hour-a-day responsibility, and we will continue to deal with these things in that manner.